Good morrow, godlings. It's been a little while. And I'm up very early. Having trouble sleeping lately, can you imagine? I seem to have a lot on my mind. I hope you're all well. While I was laying there not sleeping, in that semi-sleeping state, let me turn this down a little. Something occurred to me and I wanted to share it with you all. We all want many things. In fact, we need many things. And we wonder why it is that we don't have the abundance, the joy, the love in our lives that we know we deserve. We try all kinds of manifestation, law of attraction, imagifesting. And it occurred to me in a very revelatory way as I was laying there trying to sleep what the problem is. I'm noticing it in myself lately. So I wanted to tell you what I saw. We have a tendency to allow ourselves to be bumped out of our equilibrium with what's going on in the world, particularly in the United States. It's very understandable. We have folks behaving in ways that we're leaders behaving in ways that we're just not accustomed to seeing, and that alarms and offends sensibilities. Lots of lying, etc. It gets us angry because we're frightened. And then we hurl into our field around us, and around each one of us, there's an energetic field where we integrate with the greater field, out of which all things manifest into our personal experience, our own private fields. They're not really private, but because we're all fully, there is no separate self, there are no separate selves. We're all fully interpenetrating one another and the field. So we interpenetrate one another through the field. And we manifest out of the field as a kind of densification in locations. Everything does. Everything manifests that way, as a densification out of the greater field. So we have our own little private energetic bubbles, and that's a good way to think of them. It's really a torus field around our bodies. And we're hurling our desires, our loves, our hopes, our joys, our fears, our anger, all out into that personal field. And it's like, imagine the Earth with all of the space junk around it. That's kind of what we're like. Our fields are full of junk. There's also the good stuff, but there's a lot of junk. A lot of things we make ourselves less healthy and less happy thinking, much less saying. What blocks you, I saw this morning, from getting in to your experience, your personal bubble, the things you want, is that in order for the universe, the greater field, to deliver to you in your semi-private field the things you want, it has to open up that field to deliver them. And you've got all this junk in the way that the universe doesn't want to reinforce you by manifesting, and is trying to protect you from your rash utterances and your rash thoughts and your angry thoughts, your fearful thoughts. So while you're thinking, not that, not that, not that, you're putting that in your field. It's like space junk around you. And the universe is trying to deliver to you the good things you want. It can't get past your space junk. So this is why forgiveness, and the way I use it, I mean, you can't forgive just one person or one thing. Forgiveness is all or nothing at all. If you want forgiveness to work, you have to forgive everything, everyone, all at once. Now, when I say forgive, I mean, you just have to change your mind and your heart space, your feelings, your self-talk about all of that negativity with which you've been polluting your field. So you can call back to you. You don't have to go through it one by one, although that might help. But you can do a general cleansing of your field, an energetic cleansing, by changing your self-talk, putting yourself in a more charitable frame of mind, a more charitable heart space. So that, for instance, you realize anybody who is offending you with their lies or selfish behavior, their conflicts of interest, and their obvious self-serving behavior, you realize that these are just human beings who have gotten themselves into situations where so much is on the line for them that they feel cornered into continuing down the path that they've chosen. And so they double down, and then they triple down, and they quadruple down. Because they too need a way back so that they can repent and do an about-face. And as long as we're holding our grievances out at them in our fields just as strongly as we're begging for relief and for the things that we need and want that are good, we cannot get those comforts, those joys into our experience. I wish people would realize this. There are no ends, no goals sufficiently noble to justify ignoble means to attain them. You simply cannot get to what is good and noble through ignoble. You can't get there. The means define the possible outcomes. So, in order for you to get the joy, the peace, the love, the abundance that you want and you deserve and are entitled to as a godling, you have to clean up your field. Now, the meditation I did for this morning is, I was, again, half awake, half asleep. But I'll share it with you. It's very simple. I imagined my field all around me full of birds. And I saw the vile, angry, frightened things that I have thoughts that I have hurled out into my field as birds that were black feathered. Not that there's anything wrong with birds with black feathers. It was just a symbol. I saw them all as birds with black feathers. And then I saw all of the good feelings, aspirations, hopes, wishes, dreams as bluebirds. And they were all flying together in a little whirlwind around me against a baby blue sky. And as I willed to redeem, to be charitable, putting myself in a loving heart space, I saw the black birds turning steadily blue. Blue, like the bluebirds of the happiness, of the things that I wanted, that are good. And I just basically loved all of the dark thoughts, the dark birds, into being bluebirds. I canceled out their negativity in forgiveness, realizing that the people I had been offended by when I hurled those dark thoughts out into my field were just human beings who are trapped by their prior choices. They have taken themselves down very dark alleys where they feel there is no way back. These are people who don't know how to say, I was wrong, I'm sorry. Their whole persona is built on being tough. And so they've never practiced being wrong graciously. They've never practiced that. These are people who are kind of bullies, but behind all that bullying behavior are some really sad, scared, pitiable personas. So I'm urging you now, in order to clear your fields of all the negativity that I know you are very understandably feeling, to think of them who offend you in this charitable way. They are like "11-year-olds, specifically 11-year-old boys, shot full of testosterone, trained by the world to be aggressive, to be bullies, having been humiliated probably many times in their lives for being kind and vulnerable. They don't know how to interact like regular human beings and simply say, I've changed my mind, I was wrong, I wish I hadn't allowed that to happen that way, I wish I hadn't said those words, I wish I had taken a kinder tone, whatever, and then adjusting their behavior. We're talking about people with very stunted emotional maturity. They do not know how. They are stuck in the psychology of adolescence because they have never learned to self-correct. They've never learned to self-correct because bullying, blustering, being tough people has always got them what they wanted. And above all, they did not want to be humiliated. And they equate saying I was wrong with being weak. They don't understand that it takes a very strong person to say, I didn't handle that well. And that in itself requires self-observation and reflection that these individuals are usually, this is quite typical, usually these people are not at all conscious. They're not lucid, observing their behavior and themselves so that they can, within the context of how we view things societally. And so they've never been able to learn to self-correct and mature themselves. And they've just fallen into a pattern of strong-arming situations and lying. So I'm going to encourage you all to realize, please, deeply in your hearts, that these people are trapped. They don't know they're trapped. And for your sake, even as much as it will also help everyone else, including the people who are eliciting the unpleasant emotions you're feeling by their poor behavior, clear your fields of all that space junk. Turn those blackbirds of fear and hate and anger into bluebirds of happiness. By thinking of these individuals, no matter who they are in your life, and I'm sure there are many, by thinking of them charitably, like they're 11-year-old boys who don't know any better. Nobody's ever taught them. Now, when I was growing up, if I acted that way, one of my parents would have slapped, if not switched or belted. By belt, I mean thrashing me with a belt, in order to make me understand how disapproved of behavior was. I don't recommend that either. The only reason I'm bringing it, because it just engenders more hate and anger and fear. And honestly, a child that will be corrected by such corporal means is a child that you could have used reasoning to change them. Obviously, the individuals we're all encountering these days with their belligerence and their bluster and their have had plenty of corporal punishment in their lives, and it never worked. So my natural reaction is to want to smite them. And I'm sure a lot of us feel the same way. And I don't see it's helpful, and in fact it pollutes my field. And when my field is polluted, the good things that are out there flying around waiting to be fulfilled are trapped inside my field. They can't really interpenetrate the universe and get the universe's answer to my request. They can't get out. Because if I open my field to let the good, loving requests out into the universe, all those blackbirds are going to get out too. And they're going to get out there and pollute the greater field. I hope that metaphor works for you, because that's very much the way it felt to me when I was in the lucid, liminally dreaming state, right at the edge of consciousness, but not quite awake. Let's talk about what being conscious means, lucid. It doesn't just mean observing your self-talk, as I've encouraged you all to do. Observe your self-talk generating your emotions, okay? You are not, the point of that level of lucidity is to teach you that you are not your mind, you are not your thoughts, you are not your self-talk, you are not those things. You are actually the supervisor and the observer of your mind. But even back further than that, actually, your power rests, your true access to your godly estate rests in observing yourself, observing the self-talk, observing the emotions. So you are the observer of the self-talk and emotions. That is the I am presence. The observer of the observer is the I am presence. So when I ask you to be conscious, it's in 2 stages. And the first stage is observing the self-talk and the emotions. And the heightening of your lucidity, you shift to being the observer of the self-talk. And this is true consciousness. And in this is your power. So when you're practicing lucidity, and you're observing your self-talk and your emotions, don't just stop there. Notice yourself doing it. Observe yourself observing the self-talk. This is consciousness. This is lucidity. And please, clear your fields. I had, a few days ago, a wonderful experience that I'll tell you briefly about. I was driving home from the doctor's office. Pardon me. Busy road. On the side of the road, there was a car parked, white car. And I saw a man and a woman chasing a little dog, a little wiener dog, Dachshund. It ran underneath the white car parked on the side of the road, ran right through the traffic under that car. As I passed the car, because they were on my side of the road, I noticed there was a child in the back seat who looked to be a little girl, about 5, 6 years old. And I got about 50 feet past the car, and my inner presence said, if the dog gets hit by a car, which is very likely, there are going to be 3 traumatized people feeling very guilty, and there's going to be a little girl traumatized to watch that dog get hit and die. And then the dog, too, is going to suffer. And you're good with dogs. You need to stop them. You need to stop and help them. So I did. I pulled over, and I went back. And I got the man to go get a long stick because she was hiding right in the middle of the dachshund, however you say it. Hiding right in the middle underneath the car where nobody could reach her. She was an old dog. And we got the stick, he gave me the stick, and I began annoying her with it to get her to move towards one side of the car, the other side of the car, so somebody could get her. And I told the man, reach under there and get her. She's probably going to bite you, but don't worry, she can't do a lot of damage. She's an old dog. Her teeth won't be very good. And she bit him. Not much. A little nip. And, of course, he drew back and was afraid to try again. And the woman, I called her around. I said, come here, please, and keep her against that tire. I'll go get her. And I went around to the other side, and I looked down. I saw her little brown leg, front leg, and I reached down and I grabbed it, and she bit me across the nail bed of my thumb. No big deal. I kept hold of her. I reached and grabbed her other front leg, and I pulled her up against me, pulled her out from underneath the car, turned her around, and put her back against my chest. Her name was Diva, they told me, and so I was calling her, Diva, Diva, it's okay. And I began stroking her, and I could feel her heart beating. And I felt her field interacting with mine, and she began to calm right down because she could feel with her heart right up against mine, she could feel my love for her. Now, I didn't love her personally, I loved her just for the innocence that she is. I love animals that way, all animals. So she calmed down, and once she calmed down, I handed her off to the woman. And She said, we just got her. We adopted her. She's an old dog. I said, yes, she is very old. And they said, thank you so much for helping us. She's really stinky. And oh my goodness, she really was. And I don't know what to do. The lady said, we have to bathe her. She smells so bad. And I said, yes, but you need to spend some time just loving her and building trust with her. And then you need to put her in a warm bath just up to her chest. Not hot, not tepid, just warm. And you need to dribble the water over her and soap her up. And don't get any soap in her eyes on the first bath, or she will associate the pain with you, because it's a new relationship. And I said, she also has a tooth infection. I can smell it on her breath. You need to take her to the vet. And if you don't take her to the vet, the tooth infection will eventually kill her. And she said, oh, what will they do? I said, well, they may pull the tooth. They'll certainly give you antibiotics. They'll probably do both, pull whatever tooth is bad and give you antibiotics. But she really needs to see a vet right away. And of course, they were very grateful. And I felt really blessed to have been able to help. 3 people spared trauma. Dog spared being smashed. I got in my car and I left, and I was driving down the road, down the interstate, when it began to hit me. I felt this buoyancy in my chest, and there was a little flash of what felt like light right in my heart. A little flash of, it felt like light. And my chest opened. It felt like I was vast and expansive in my chest. And I felt so blessed to be able to help. So grateful that it had worked out that way. And that little flash happened again in my chest. And I got an even more lightened feeling inside, a more vast feeling in my chest. And it happened a 3rd time. And I was weeping happily. And I realized my heart chakra had just opened. It had been closed ever since Hurricane Idalia hit me. The first hurricane in a series of 3 to hit me in 11 months. Idalia hit me, I think it was the end of September 2023. My heart chakra has been closed all that time. It's not that I haven't been feeling loving. I have. It's just I had shut myself down to avoid further pain, to not sit in the pain of all the challenge and loss and difficulty I had to go through to clean up after all those hurricanes, to see the trees I loved knocked over all over my property. I had been grieving all of that secretly, and I had just shut my heart. And it opened, and I felt wonderful. And I've been feeling wonderful ever since. And I just really want to tell you guys, think about that. Doing something loving and kind, going out of my way, going out of your way to help someone when you don't have to, being someone's angel, intervening for them, is its own reward for what it does to your field, for the way it opens your heart. It makes you feel so much better. And if you really want to lift yourself out of negative doldrums and help lift each other, I really suggest we start a rash of this. What did they call it a few years ago? It was random acts of kindness. Well, I want to encourage you to go a little further. Random acts of minor heroism. I call it minor heroism because it was no big deal. But I did it because I cared. And I'm going to encourage you to care. You don't have to do anything huge. But let your heart speak to you about how you can help another. And it's even better if they're strangers, that you show the world and show other people that that kind of heroic love is alive and kicking. Do that for yourself as much as for anybody else. Let's start a wave of random acts of loving heroism. And start by thinking charitably about the adolescents who are presently going down very unfortunate paths, unfortunate for themselves and the whole world, because they've never learned to be conscious and to self-correct. And they think admitting their mistakes makes them weak, instead of realizing that having the heart to admit your mistakes and deciding to do better, determining to do better, is a sign of a very strong soul, a very valiant heart. I love you all. We're going to get through this together. Let's try to help these adolescents transform. Let's be charitable in our thinking about them. Turn the blackbirds into bluebirds. Release your grievances and begin seeing them begin seeing those individuals who are offending you, offending us all, in charitable ways. And manifest them having epiphanies in which they face themselves at last. Wouldn't it be lovely if even the very worst of us were able at last, even late in their lives, to come to terms with the path that they've chosen, and seeing it's not leading anywhere good, and that we would respect them ever so much more, honestly, if they would just stop lying. Stop it with the bluster and the bullying and the thug behavior. Now, I know it seems like a lot to ask. And where did I put that? Ah, yes. Let's all put out the little I, the ego I, and become consciousness itself, conscious of itself, the observer of the observer of the thoughts and self-talk. Thinking of one another charitably and manifesting the little boys becoming men at last. Bye for now.